This is Cybersound, your simplified and fundamentals-focused source for all things cybersecurity, with your hosts, Jason Pufall, Stephen Maresca, and Matt Fusaro.
Welcome to Cybersound. I'm your host, Jason Pufall, joined today, really as always, by Steve Maresca, Matt Fusaro.
Hey.
All right, Matt saying hi.
Yeah,
it's Steve's now.
Hi this time.
This is brutal. I can't win. So today, we're actually going to talk a little bit about an approach that Vancord is moving towards to really better manage our clients. I think one of the issues, and we talk about this on podcasts all the time, right? The challenges of vulnerability management, sort of better security for client infrastructure, and sort of recognizing what a challenge that was. We've started to look over the last few months on ways to get better visibility for client infrastructure. And we've really settled on a set of Microsoft technologies, and we'll start to do sort of ongoing vulnerability management, ongoing threat detection, as a general term, but really focused on this Microsoft ecosystem. I think we've seen, well, certainly, right, like everybody, a huge portion of our client base is Microsoft centric. And Microsoft itself, certainly over the last, I don't know, Matt, half dozen years, maybe more, has really become much more security conscious. I think really reinvented themselves in the space in terms of cloud computing, sort of data aggregation, and sort of security visibility. So we've termed our sort of, I'll call it our product, as Vantage Protect. I really need to let Matt speak about this because, frankly, it's his brainchild in many ways to push this. He gives me a coy smile, but he knows it's true. So maybe spend a couple of minutes on sort of what the ecosystem is that we're basing all of this on. Maybe what some of the near term capabilities would be, but then I think what some of the vision might be potentially moving forward.
Sure. So I kind of want to back up a little bit and talk about why we started doing this now, right? When we merged our two brands together, Vancord and TBNG Consulting, we kind of took on a new responsibility of having to be present and always taking a look at vulnerabilities, threats for all the clients that TBNG Consulting had on contract, right? So they take care of quite a few, and we are charged now with managing vulnerabilities for a very large set of customers. This isn't a normal situation, right? You may find these situations in larger Fortune 500 companies where you've got a lot of different business units that you got to take care of. It's kind of akin to that, just lots of smaller businesses that we deal with that have the same challenges, though, right? So we needed a way to be able to see vulnerabilities, mitigate them, see threats and mitigate them, make it available for our analysts, make it obtainable for the infrastructure people that are actually going out there and working with these clients every day, implementing infrastructure, deploying servers, et cetera. And like you said, Microsoft is the primary product that these people are using for their services. We see some Linux every now and then. We see some AWS every now and then, but for the most part, they're using things like 365 for email, the productivity apps, all of that. So we decided to go down the route of utilizing a lot of the services that are inside of Azure and the 365 ecosystem to create a whole program, basically. We call it a product, but really we've put together quite a few different services from Azure. We do use some stuff from Tenable as well to kind of supplement some things that we don't get directly out of Azure. But really what I want to do is kind of pull back the curtain a bit on how we manage all of this, right? It's quite a bit of data, quite a few systems, and a lot of different business goals that we have to be aligned with for our customers.
So one of the things that jumps out to me, and I think we need to talk really, frankly, specific product capabilities. But I think what jumps out to me is the value of having all of your security data in one platform like that,
right?
Because you really are getting system logs, you're getting your antivirus, right? Your defender logs into this, all your vulnerability data. They've created an ecosystem where they have an incredible visibility across an entire organization's infrastructure, which I think is going to be ultimately hugely beneficial
Right.
from a security reporting and security analytics standpoint?
Yeah. So there's some core products that we really formed a lot of it around inside of Azure as a service called Defender for Cloud, which we utilize to bring a lot of the vulnerability management and the threat management together, right? It's kind of an alerting center, it's a configuration center, compliance center for all of this stuff. So that when we onboard a client into this, we're able to see all the infrastructure that they have, uh, onboard all of it into it, and turn on services as we need. You mentioned logging, right? Some organizations need more advanced logging where we're pulling everything in, they're going into a SIM. And then we've got others that really, we just want the important stuff there, maybe track vulnerabilities and give them some threat protection, right? So that we can go, there's a myriad of things we can do there and just turn it on instead of having to deploy whole new services for it.
And I think there's a key aspect to that I want to emphasize, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but the truth is that it's not just a Microsoft-centric platform. It's multi-platform.
Right.
You alluded to Linux systems a moment ago. Microsoft has explicit support for
Correct.
other platforms baked into some of the services we're talking about, which makes it all the more attractive.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people don't know is a lot of the Azure management plane will work directly with Linux most of the time, even on their VM side, right? So if you're deploying virtual machines into there, there's plenty of Linux support. There's threat protection Linux support, even Mac support these days. Yeah, so they've really bought into that ecosystem. They've been contributing code for a while now as well to the Linux team. And on top of that, they're also able to integrate pretty well with things like AWS and GCP. That's GCP is Google's cloud, if you don't know. So we can get security posture management, which basically means we can go and scan those infrastructures for things that should be configured, or at least a baseline against it, and say, hey, you should turn XYZ on. And it also kind of helps consolidate all that into a score, right? I'm not a big fan of single scores, but a lot of times, when you get to the executive level of a company, they want to know, hey, where am I? Can you give me an A, B, C, 100%, 10%? Where am I? Right. So we can kind of consolidate that into a score for people. It's a little bit more consumable than talking about all the individual things that have to happen.
So where do you see this going? Certainly day one, I think the emphasis is vulnerability management, patch management, right? Some of the really those fundamental things that we continue to bring up, right? That's day one where you envision. What are some of the other capabilities here that you say sort of near term things that clients might be interested in?
Yeah, like you said, the primary reason we started this was vulnerabilities, and that'll be at the core of it is scanning for vulnerabilities on servers and mitigating those things. We will be building in more network-wide vulnerability management into that. So your switches, your firewalls, IoT devices, all of that data will be in there as well. On top of that, I think the real benefit here is threat management. There are some extremely good capabilities. If you've never had the chance to use Defender for Endpoint, which is very different from Windows Defender, which is built into every desktop, every server that gets deployed by default. Defender for Endpoint is a full endpoint detection and response system. Its timelining capabilities of what's going on a system are extremely good. When there is an alert or incident that gets triggered, there's tons of data there. It's taken our time from, hey, there's an alert, to we know what's going on, and compress that quite a bit. And that's what's important, is now we can get an alert, understand it, and respond to a client very quickly, as opposed to using several different tools to actually accomplish that the way we used to.
So I'm actually really glad that you went down that incident response path, because I think we've done a fair amount of that over the last few years. More often than not, folks that we're engaged with don't have any information at their disposal to help with exactly what you just described, right? Understanding the incident, understanding the impact. The nice thing about rolling into something like this is it does capture a lot of the data that we might need sort of at the basics, right? You can always collect more, but by rolling clients into this, you're going to get log data. You're going to get sort of threat intelligence. They're moving down a path of giving you better to your point, better clarity of what an attack might look like, really in sort of a graphical or pictorial format. I mean, huge benefits there in the ability to recover quickly.
Right. And that's a testament to what you said earlier about a lot of the data being in one place. What's great about this is that we can aggregate all these different data points together. Lots of different services can utilize them, but it's also really easy to ship it somewhere else too. If we can integrate really well with other things. So if we put this on top and you're a Splunk user, you're a QRadar user, however it is that you want to consume data afterwards, we can just pipe it out to you. Right. And that was really important for me because that's how we need to work with systems all the time. We don't like closed boxes that only work in one area. We want to be able to move data back and forth as we want to. So that was really important for me when we built this, and that's there. So that's great.
And, we're a company that does security research. We have people who develop unique tools to make our services both stand out and more effective for us to use for our customers. I'm most interested in some of these components because suddenly Microsoft has done the development and integration that would otherwise, for us, be exclusively internal.
Right.
It's a really interesting shift of focus that to me speaks to their level of refinement for data analysis and similar.
Yeah, they've definitely put the security aspects to the forefront. I'd say a majority of the services that get deployed on Azure at this point they have some type of security angle to them, right? So I think that's good for everyone.
And so moving forward, and we're certainly seeing a lot of focus industry-wide about adherence to regulatory requirements. It's really nice to put these tools in place. Does the framework or does the set of capabilities support any particular frameworks, or give sort of add security qualities such that they adhere to frameworks?
Yeah, you get several things out of it, really. I'd say that there's probably still more work to do on the regulatory side. They focus a lot about assets that are in Azure, so VMs in Azure, services in Azure. But there's a whole framework there to build out. If you're a CMMC shop or you want to follow NIST guidelines, you can build them out to even apply to your on-site resources as well. Some of it's already built in. Other things could probably use some tuning, but there's the capability there to assess and get the technical controls that are associated with all of those compliances and report on them pretty easily. And again, if data classification is important to you, we have ways to help with that. Purview is one of the device or applications inside of Azure that allows you to do that. That basically what this is saying is it can come with you on your security roadmap all the way from, hey, I really just need to get updates and vulnerability management running, to, okay, now I'm ready to do things like SIM, data classification, labeling, regulatory reporting, all of that. So that's why we chose this platform.
So, it's a really exciting time for Vancord. And certainly we had discussions about this as we were thinking through, right, what the outcomes would be when we merged the two companies together. Right. The fundamental goal was, let's make sure that as an MSP, we're putting security first. This clearly does that, right? From a positioning standpoint, it emphasizes security for all of our clients. It brings a tremendous amount of data in that they typically wouldn't have, strengthening all the things that we currently do, while frankly giving data to the security part of the company to be able to take action on from an incident standpoint or just from a proactivity standpoint. So it really directionally aligned with everything that we had decided to do, 6-9 months ago when we talked through that.
Yeah, it forced us to create processes internally that not only just involve security folks, but also the infrastructure folks. We're working together now. We have ways to communicate when something happens, and there's more standards for when we're deploying things, and quite honestly, checking people's work, right? None of us are perfect. You install some infrastructure. We want to make sure we did it in a secure way. We now have ways to evaluate that after we're done. And it's just the reality of things now. You can't just be an infrastructure engineer. You kind of have to be a little bit of a security engineer too. And this kind of helps you do that without having to take the role on fully.
To me, there are so many smaller organizations that are a little earlier in their security arc of maturity that are already in 365, already in Azure.
Yep.
What this to me represents is an opportunity to leverage investments that perhaps that they already have or
For
are
sure.
likely to increase as time goes on without having to stray from that.
Yep.
It's an easy decision from an organizational strategy standpoint to use something that's already in place.
Yeah, it gives you access to more advanced tools and scale that you normally would never have been able to do before. This stuff was typically always reserved for the larger companies that had $1 million plus security budgets, right? Now this stuff is pretty accessible. Really, the challenge is putting it together and having a process around managing it, and that's
what we're doing.
Decided that's our value there. Let's put it all together and put a process behind it.
So, certainly day one, right, for any of the clients that actually are listening to this that work with us currently, we'll be rolling this out shortly. But I think the vision ultimately is to create something that we could probably extend further, because I think a lot of the work really is putting the framework together. Rolling unmanaged clients in, I think is on the horizon as well.
Yep. Yeah, we're hoping to do that. We're hoping to. We see plenty of opportunity to integrate other tools too. Microsoft goes really far in this path, but there's other tools out there that can help. But we want to centralize that data in one place, and we'll be able to do that.
Okay. Any parting thoughts at all? No. I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah. So we're certainly excited by it. If anybody is interested in sort of better understanding the components that we're calling, Vantage Protect, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to talk more about it. If a basic takeaway could simply be, if you are a Microsoft shop, it's probably worth looking at some of the security capabilities that Microsoft provides natively, because they really are robust, and I think that they're improving really honestly month after month. They're adding new features. So. But if you want to make it simple, feel free to give us a buzz, and we're happy to help set them up. As always, we hope you got value out of this. Hope it moves you forward a little bit on your security journey, and we appreciate you listening.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to get in touch at Vancord on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Vancord Security. And remember, stay vigilant, stay resilient. This has been CyberSound.